Okay, right, let's go.
Thumbnail at the end. So, welcome to Let's Talk Learning, the space where learning comes alive. I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Amy, and together we're part of the National Learning Group, a team dedicated to transforming the way that students learn through one-to-one tuition.
In this podcast, we're going beyond the classroom to discuss innovative and effective educational strategies with insights from colleagues, experts, and real experiences from tutors and learners.
And every week, we're going to explore different topics, drawing on our experiences at the National Learning Group to bring you insights, debates, and perspectives in the world of education. Whether you're navigating the challenging world of education or looking to enhance your learning journey, we're here to share, explore, and learn together.
So let's dive into today's topic, which is the evolution of teaching online. So, Amy, we were talking about this earlier, and you asked me a really good question. What was it like when I was at school, in terms of, was there any technology?
Yeah.
And to be honest, there really wasn't very much. We're talking mid-1980s, early 1990s. So mid-1980s, there was one Acorn computer in the corner of the geography classroom. And I remember, because it was a boarding school, whenever we had any free time, there'd be a fight to get on the computer. And I think we played some very basic games on it. And then as I went to secondary school, so that would be late 80s, going to early 90s, we started to have language labs and things like that.
Yeah.
And then when I was at university, the computer was still a bit of a novelty. Email was a novelty.
Wow.
We were asked to go and do a training course, just a basic one, so we knew how to work email, literally. And
See, that's awful to be, because email I thought has been around for decades.
Yeah. I think it was really launched. So when was I at university? 94 to 98.
Yeah.
So around the mid-90s, I think. And I think email had been something that was an internal thing, and then there was this explosion of all these companies like Yahoo, and no one knew what it was, and it was all this exciting thing. And I remember having my first email account and being a little bit scared of it. I did all my essays. I handwrote my essays, really, a lot of them, and then eventually I word processed them.
Yeah.
Some people would go to the university library and use computers there, but it wasn't a thing to have your own.
See, the last essay that I wrote was probably about 10 years ago now.
So tell us what it was like when you were in school.
Well, it seems massively different to when you were at school. So I think when I was at school, initially it was the early 2000s, and you mentioned having access to one computer. I think we had 2 ICT suites across the school, and I don't think we had iPads at that stage. So early 2000s, I think we had the 2 ICT suites, and then we at least had one ICT lesson a week, and that would be predominantly on Paint. Maybe we had Microsoft Word, and we were just using the keyboard to get ourselves familiarised with the different systems and softwares that we had available.
Yeah.
And then we went to secondary. And I think around the time that I went to secondary was around the time that the iPhone, the iPads came into kind of mainstream technology.
Yeah.
So they were really accessible. I think we had a group of iPads for the whole school that we could share.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to look at different artists on iPads. And then really when technology came into the forefront of my educational experience was throughout my university experience. Now this was... going back a bit now.
Not as far as me.
Not as far as you, but still a little while ago. So it was around the time of COVID, and everything was online. So my first semester, when it was in person, every essay that we had to submit, every assignment that we had to do, all online, all typed. We never had to write anything, never had to draw any diagrams. It was all online as well. And then COVID hit. And that's when you really saw the change from this, okay, we'll use online technology to aid learning, to we're going to depend on it now. It was this whole shift from to dependency on online technology.
And was it organised effectively, would you say, at that stage?
Well, no. I wouldn't necessarily say that my university course was organised effectively, but I think that was due to a lack of experience with it. And it was more of we're not prepared for this, but we have to now. Whereas I feel like if you're really prepared for online learning and it's at the core of what you do, it can really be organised, managed and delivered effectively. It was just my personal experience at university wasn't.
And that's why it's an evolution, because
absolutely.
And also a revolution, I'd say. I'd argue in terms of teaching and learning. COVID was this kind of watershed moment where everybody, parents, students, teachers, schools, universities, colleges, all decided that this was the where it was going. This is the future of teaching, kind of like AI teachers, which is a bit frightening.
And the thing is as well that the people that were organising all of this change when COVID happened weren't as familiar with technology as what I would consider our generation to be. You know, when we were asked to go onto Zoom and things, you'd often have the lecturers being like, "Oh, sorry, I was late. I was figuring out how to work Zoom." And we were all like, okay. And there is this generational divide when it comes to online technology. You've mentioned there that your generation, way back when,
well, we were the transitional generation.
Exactly. It was introduced when you were first in school, and you're not going to be as familiar unless you do it as a job with all these new methods that are brought out, because children today, these new methods are kind of tested on them. You know, you see these new apps that are brought in, you see these new learning platforms that are brought in, and they're the generational guinea pigs because they've got so much exposure to it, whereas we were, you know, often, I suppose you were an afterthought as such, because you just get thrown into it.
Yeah, we definitely, and we have to adapt. So going back to the evolution of all this, so when I first started teaching, which is 99, basically, I think I mentioned to you...
That was the year I was born.
It made me feel old, Amy, but we were still using those scrolly blackboards with chalk. I remember still getting white chalk on my cardigans and stuff like that.
So not even whiteboards with markers?
No
markers?
No, not where I was training.
Wow.
And actually, when I first started working in the school I was working in, still the same Rolly boards. But eventually it was all changed. There was still OHPs, but projectors eventually started to come in, and gradually desktops in classrooms, and eventually it was the smart boards and laptops, but it was all a development. And I ended up in my previous job working in a school where they actually were quite far ahead of the game in terms of working with Microsoft to deliver blended learning and to use OneNote and the Surface. And we worked very closely with Microsoft to kind of make sure that it all worked fluidly for it. But this was before COVID. I think then I left the school in 2019 and COVID hit the following year. And I think all of that prep that we had done without knowing actually prepared the school for COVID, for the online learning.
But you were kind of around for the integration of technology into teaching in the classroom. Whereas in my teacher training, it was in every lesson, and every single assignment or piece of work or topic had to have a piece of work submitted on an iPad, and that was in every school that I was on a placement in, and every classroom I've taught in. So, you know, the one school that I was at, every single piece of submitted work had to have some sort of component that the students had taken or captured on an iPad or drawn on an iPad, and that baffled me because that wasn't around when I was in school, but it was to show that they were competent with technology. And that's such a big thing in today's modern society, is having that familiarity with different pieces of technology, which I didn't think was something that was looked for in school. And
ironically, why are exams still written on paper? That's for another day. But I'd say COVID then has launched the need for organised online tuition, and that's where the market for homeschooling, for university courses, for one-to-one tuition has come about. And that's why we have companies like NLG.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the compound annual growth rate of online tuition was expected to grow in 2021 to 2026 by 12%, and I think it's increased now. And that is obviously the start of COVID. That's why those figures were brought about, because it showed the need for it. And when I mentioned my university experience there, I said that it wasn't well organised. Companies like the NLG, whose sole purpose is to provide organised and structured and amazing one-to-one tuition, can really thrive and have really thrived, because they're offering structured sessions, organised sessions with high highly experienced tutors and teachers alike across multiple subjects.
Yeah. And that also helps and complements the education they're getting in school, if the students are getting the education in school. But it means that they have access to, as you say, one-to-one tailored tuition, which is something that, if depending on the school they're in, they're not going to get in a classroom with 30 students.
No. When I was in the classroom, there were so many times and so many occasions where students would reach out for support, and you would walk around the class and you'd mark the work in the class to save time, and you'd identify misconceptions, but you don't have time to sit there with every single student and give them their undivided attention and help them out. So you can give them pointers and you can give them tips, you can stop the class if there's multiple ones, but you're never ever going to reach every student in that 1 hour session you've got. And it's not heartbreaking. Well, it does affect you, because you want to make sure that every child's getting the best learning experience. And when you can't sit there and give them your undivided attention, it is hard, because you're there to teach them at the end of the day. And if you don't do that fully, it's hard when you finish a lesson. And that's where one-to-one tutoring really sets itself apart, because you can give your undivided attention to that child for a whole hour. You can address the misconceptions, you can give them feedback on the call, and learning happens so much quicker because they have your sole attention for that whole period.
It develops their confidence, and essentially it's making what would be a private education accessible to all. And I think that's really the gift that online tuition gives. Plus it reduces the need to be in a particular area, because online tuition ensures that you can have experts who, it doesn't matter where they're living within the UK, they can still deliver what you need. So that's where the NLG has kind of really come to the fore and has provided organised online tuition. So then, Amy, we're going to just give a little insight into the origins of NLG.
Yes.
And I know that you and I weren't here at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And in future podcasts, we can talk to people who were. Do you know where it all started?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked quite a lot about COVID during this episode, and the origins of NLG start really around then, or slightly just before actually. So it was first brought about in 2018 by the director Oliver, and it wasn't really until early 2019 where several tutors were brought on board and the concept really started to grow. And I think that's because the need for online education and one-to-one tuition was also starting to grow as well. So it started with our first tutor and fellow tutor team manager, Jane, and then it evolved into more tutors, and now we have over 200 tutors. And initially it was just English and maths, and now we are actually tutoring officially across 9 subjects. However, we do have a few ad hoc subjects as well, which hopefully we are going to officially launch very shortly. And so the growth's been exponential since 2018, growing from obviously 1 tutor to over 200, and I think we're at over 1,000 students now as well.
I know.
Yeah,
it's really doing well.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
And I'm guessing there were some challenges at first, in terms of establishing themselves in quite a busy market, but they're really to the fore now. And I think they've moved office as well. So originally they were in Hexham. I think it started with three people, and now, as you talked about, we've got 1,000 students, 200 tutors, office staff of almost 30. I think when I joined it was about 20. So it's really developing through and providing tailored provision, really well structured, great support for parents, students and tutors, which I think is what defines it in the market.
Well, today we're talking about the evolution of online teaching, and the National Learning Group really pioneers of it, because they started way before this whole need for online education was made apparent by COVID. It started before all this, and it's kind of led the charge and set the tone for current educational companies that are offering the same thing, because we use innovational softwares and systems. We go above and beyond for the tutors, having a team of qualified professionals who are there to support the tutors and teachers who do currently tutor for us. And we do inspire students to be the best they can be at NLG, and that's what does really set us apart. And technology and online teaching is never going to stop evolving. You know, the integration of AI into many softwares and systems is just going to keep on growing, and the NLG embraces it.
Could a student spend their whole educational lifetime with NLG?
Oh, absolutely, because we offer from primary all the way up to adult tuition across 9 subjects. You know, whatever avenue they decide to go down, we can accommodate for that. We have qualified early years specialists, highly experienced tutors, and then we also have tutors and teachers and scholars who can tutor across a wide range of levels.
And what subjects are we now offering? So I know it's maths and science.
You're going to test me now because we're offering so many.
English?
Yeah, so maths, science. Well, it was maths and English to start with, and then recently science. And then we noticed that quite a few of our teachers and tutors had experience teaching humanities and modern foreign languages, and we thought that was the next best avenue to go down. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how many softwares and systems can actually accommodate those different subjects. So we also offer English as a foreign language tuition.
That's right.
Really testing me now.
Some links in China. There's links in China.
Yes, absolutely. We've got international students.
And essentially it's going from strength to strength.
Yeah. Who knows what we'll be teaching next?
Who knows? We're looking at T-levels as well, aren't we?
T-levels, yes, T-levels.
The IB.
We're gonna touch base in a few more weeks, I think, on T-levels, because it's something that, to be honest, a couple of weeks ago we knew nothing about.
Yeah.
I personally didn't, and it's something that's quite an exciting avenue to be explored.
Yeah. For
A-level students or potential A-level students.
And we're going to be able to clarify a lot of these questions that you may have.
Yeah.
So I think we've had a good chat today, Amy, and we've probably spoken for too long. People will want to go and have their cups of tea and lunches. We will in the future have a Q&A section. We hope that these will be live at some point. So what we'd like you to do is, whatever channel you're watching this on, if you could leave a comment, and if that's not something you want to do, you can get in contact with NLG, and our details should be on the screen, or you can always email us.
Yeah. We invite you to leave your thoughts and opinions, because we want to discuss as many topics as possible in the world of education to help anyone with any queries or any questions that they do have. So, as Elisabeth said, please do leave any questions or queries you have, and we would be more than happy to discuss them at a later stage.
It'd be lovely to do so. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Let's Talk Learning. Thank you very much for joining us. And we hope you found our discussion insightful and it's given you new... I'm reading this ending.
Okay.
Let's restart that bit.
We really do hope that you found the topic discussed insightful. I know that we've had really fun talking about the evolution of online tutoring, as we really do think it is at the heart of everything the NLG does.
And for any more interesting conversations and educational insights, please follow the National Learning Group on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok, sharing valuable resources and updates.
Yeah, we do have so many more exciting topics lined up. We have so many expert guests that we're hoping to bring in, and also some of our fellow colleagues, parents, and hopefully some of our tutors as well, who are really versed in this world of online education. And we're hoping that you, alongside all of our wonderful colleagues, will be part of this ever-growing community. So please feel free to join us next time, where we will discuss lots more wonderful topics and keep learning and growing together.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.